In this section, we discuss food anthropology, which includes foodways and culture. Foodways refers to structured beliefs and behaviors surrounding the production, distribution, and consumption of food. It recognizes food as both a tangible substance that provides nutrition as well as a conduit of symbolic meaning and social relationships. Why do people eat things that others consider disgusting? Just take a look at this list. Which of the following things is food? Cheese, rotten shark flesh, rat, buffalo penis stew, caterpillars, oysters, spiders, porcupine, hamburger. That one group of people find some things disgusting that others consider delicious illustrates how culture shapes our food preferences. Ideas about what is or is not food are closely tied to processes of cultural construction, symbolism, group identity, and cultural change. All that goes to say is that foodways are culturally constructed. Foodways are governed by rules that regulate what people categorize as food, how they hunt and gather, what plants they raise and how they harvest them, how and with whom they share and prepare food, how and with whom they consume food. For example, people in supermarket economies view food as material goods less often as spiritually significant. In contrast, the Hua, who live in the eastern highlands of Papua New Guinea, believe that food has mystical properties. Eating food unites the consumer with the people who produced it, and it imbues them with the essence of the organisms they are consuming. Owing to the spiritual power of food, the Hua have rules regarding its preparation, sharing, and consumption. Foods also communicate symbolic meaning. People use food to communicate specific messages and to symbolize concepts like home and family. Specific foods and meals can unite people when they are together and symbolically connect them, such as comfort food when they are separated. Foodways mark social boundaries and identities. Food preferences, etiquette, and taboos mark ethnic or regional differences, profession or class status, and reveal one's place in the social system. However, food can also communicate division and unequal power relations. For example, sumptuary laws restricted certain foods to preferred social classes. In Renaissance England, laws allowed gentlemen to eat 2 courses of meat and fish per meal, but limited servants to 1 meat course for the entire day. Servants ate meals consisting of milk, butter, and cheese the rest of the day, a restriction that would certainly favor lactase persistence. Taste is the sense that gives humans the ability to detect flavors, as well as the social distinction associated with certain foodstuffs. Foodways are dynamic. Foodways change for many reasons, including environmental changes, identification of certain foods with good health, formerly expensive foods becoming inexpensive because of new processing techniques, and changes in family dynamics that force changes in eating habits. Let's look at how instant ramen noodles have taken over the globe. Industrial produced ramen noodles are inexpensive, they have a long shelf life, and they are easily prepared. These qualities have enabled ramen to be incorporated into diverse food systems around the world. And I know as a college student, I wouldn't have made it without ramen noodles, and I think many other people can say the same. And now we discuss adaptive strategies. The advent of food production fueled major changes in human life. We know that as the ways of subsistence changed, so did the way humans organized themselves into communities and civilizations. The formation of larger social and political systems led eventually to states. Let's discuss the modes of subsistence, including foraging, horticulture, pastoralism, and then finally agriculture. Foraging economies relied on nature to make their living. All foragers rely on natural resources for subsistence rather than controlling plant and animal production. Foraging has survived mainly in environments that have posed major obstacles to food production. Another name that many people are familiar with when we speak of foraging is hunting and gathering. Horticulture. Horticulturalists use simple tools, and their fields are not permanently cultivated, but rather they use methods that are referred to as shifting cultivation. And one of the best known is what is called slash and burn cultivation. That is, horticulturalists will grow in a particular plot of land for a certain period of time. They will, once that the soil becomes depleted, they will then set fire to things, allow things to burn, and that area that has been burned, let it rest for a few years, and the burned material and everything provides fertilization and other things for the soil so that then they can come back to that area at a later time and begin growing again. Pastoralism. Pastoralists are herders whose activities focus on such domesticated animals as cattle, sheep, goats, camels, and yaks. They attempt to protect their animals and ensure reproduction in return for food and other products. Typically, they will also make use of the herds for food and for shelter and for many, many other things that are a part of their daily lives. Before the Industrial Revolution, pastoralism was almost totally confined to the Old World. There are a couple of things to also consider with regard to pastoralism. There is pastoral nomadism, where members of a pastoral society follow the herd throughout the year, meaning wherever the herd goes in search of food, the members of those societies will move with them. Transhumance is where only a part of the group moves with the herd. Most of them stay in the home village, but it is those who tend directly to the herds who move with them. Agriculture uses land intensively and continuously. When we think about farms, mechanized farms, and industrialized farms, agribusiness, this is what we are talking about. In many cases, there's the use of domesticated animals to help in production. When there are places that don't use machinery, for example, they may use oxen and other animals to pull plows and other equipment that is used there. They also make use of irrigation, which allows them to cultivate the same plot year after year, which is opposed to horticulturalism, where we talked about the shifting cultivation. And also, irrigation provides, it's a capital investment that increases in value because it makes land available year after year. In addition to that, the use of things like fertilizers and chemicals is another characteristic of agriculture. Food as material artifact. Food artifacts. The study of early human diets is important in understanding human evolution. Food evidence takes many forms in the archaeological record. It could be a hearth, a pottery container, butchered animal bones, coprolites, tools, baskets, garbage dumps, or shell middens. Food is connected with almost all human activities. Here's another definition of foodways. It's a term used to describe a society's collection, production, and consumption of food. Culinary traditions shape identity. Archaeologists and cultural anthropologists attempt to reconstruct food practices from cultures using various clues. The study of foodways include chemical and sensual characteristics of food. What are some chemical or sensual characteristics you can think of when we think about, for example, the smells that food give? When we think about the various kinds of ways that food reacts in terms of some food is crunchy, some food is soft and velvety and silky, some food is spicy. There are many, many things that we can think about when it comes to the essential characteristics of food. And there may be others. I know that there are others that you can also think of. Food as cultural heritage. Cultural heritage refers to the traditions passed down for generations and utilized as a way of identifying a group of people. Some contemporary people focus on reviving their own culinary heritages. That includes reviving and restoring seeds, recipes, and cooking techniques that are a part of learning more about earlier populations, diverse foodways, and traditional and perhaps once lost flavors. For some people, this rediscovery is also a way of asserting or reclaiming cultural identity. Within American culture, for example, there are a number of familiar connections between certain foods. If we look on this slide and we begin at the left, the far left, the residents of San Francisco's Chinatown and steamed pork buns, the Pacific Northwest Coast indigenous peoples and salmon, and we certainly can't leave out barbecue for Memphis, and we talk about the South in general, but Memphis barbecue, Memphis being a favorite place for barbecue, a hotbed for barbecue, and my favorite, a pork sandwich from Payne's Barbecue in Memphis, and then finally the Jewish residents of New York and bagels. What are some other foods you can think of that tend to be identified with cultures and heritages? People have developed many approaches to food that claim to support health. New religious and philosophical movements often include new diets designed to improve physical and moral health.
Now a page from our Sunday morning almanac, July 5th, 1794, 221 years ago today, the day Sylvester Graham was born in West Suffield, Connecticut. He became a Presbyterian minister in Northampton, Massachusetts, and achieved fame far and wide for his dietary beliefs. His 1837 book, a treatise on bread and bread making, championed the virtues of coarse flour and of bread baked at home, ideally by the woman of the house. He also promoted the plain no-frills cracker that came to bear his name. It was all part of his teachings on health and longevity, which included such edicts as eat no flesh, nor fish, nor fowl, avoid butter, vinegar, pepper, cinnamon, sweets, soups, mustard, ginger, and gravies. And above all, he said, make love only within marriage and just once a month. His strictures on diet and abstinence won Graham both devoted followers, called Grahamites, as well as plenty of skeptics. Despite his claims to the secrets of longevity, Sylvester Graham died in 1851 at just 57 years of age. Still, Graham crackers live on, though sweeter now than he ever imagined, especially when toasted with marshmallows over a campfire. S'mores are that signature treat of summertime.
When we talk about foods, fats, diets, and health, two noteworthy diets are the paleo diet and the Mediterranean diet. The paleo diet is also called the caveman diet or the Stone Age diet. It is made up of foods that are traditionally associated with hunting and gathering, things like fruits, vegetables, lean meats, fish, nuts, and seeds. Biological anthropologists have studied the food ways of Paleolithic era people across the different regions. Not all paleo diets in circulation today are historically accurate. Anthropologists Melanie Chang and April Noel compared the paleo diet with the archaeological evidence about human ancestors and saw a lot of things that are purported with the modern day paleo diets that didn't necessarily line up with what those ancient diets had. The Mediterranean diet relies on fruits, vegetables, and olive oil with very limited amounts of meat or saturated fats. Saying something more about food and cultural identity, rice has become a sacred symbol of Japanese identity. It is a cultural memory with a long history that ties being Japanese with eating domestic Japanese rice. Anthropologist Emiko Ohuko Tierney studies the social cultural construction of rice as a metaphor for the Japanese people. Introduced from China, rice agriculture began during the Yamato period, which was from 250 to 710 CE. While the Chinese preferred long-grain rice, the Japanese cultivated short-grain rice, which they considered the only pure form of rice. It was many times used as tax payments. As Japan opened the interaction with Western nations, the Japanese continued to use rice as a metaphor for national identities. While the Japanese referred to themselves as rice eaters, they referred to Western people as meat eaters. For years, Japan had a ban on importing any foreign-grown rice, even California export rice, which is primarily the Japanese short-grain variety and available at a significantly lower price.